The train ran on time, the override failed. Now, how to spend the rest of it? Or, in some cases, how not to spend some of it. The new man at the top of Arkansas's largest school district. What do we know? But first, China's billion-dollar investment in South Arkansas. A newsmaker interview begins Arkansas Week in a moment.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
This is Arkansas Week.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us for Arkansas Week. The announcement this past week was not wholly unexpected, but still nonetheless deeply gratifying, particularly if you are in Clark County or South Arkansas, or for that matter, all of Arkansas. Mike Preston is the director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and he joins us. Sir, thanks very much for being with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
China spending $1 billion+ to put a pulp plant in South Arkansas. This did not occur in the last 2 weeks.
No, it did not. It was a culmination of years of work to get to this point. Sun Paper has been looking in the southeast United States for many years, as a matter of fact, and coming to Arkansas very early in that process. And it's kind of been a courtship for that long period of time. But I will say in the last 6, probably 8 months, things have really moved forward very quickly, including a visit this summer in June by the chairman of the company to Arkansas to visit a few sites. We hosted him that time, the governor did, and met with them, had some preliminary discussions regarding incentives and kind of how do we help up and make any deficiencies from our end. Fast forward to November, where the governor and I went over to China and spent some time at Sun Paper's facility, and again with their leadership team, and that's where we set forward a letter of intent for them to do the due diligence to build the plant. At that point, it still wasn't a done deal because they were still competitive with other states.
How competitive, though, Mr. Preston?
Up until this week, it was down to Arkansas and another state. I mean, it was.
Well, we hear Mississippi.
Mississippi is the other state that they were looking hard at, and they looked at other states before that, but it came down to Arkansas and Mississippi. So it was. As close as competitively can be on a project. So we're fortunate to be able to bring it in for a landing.
What made the difference?
It's tough to say. Many things in a project this scale make a difference. But on the end, it comes down to relationships. And I honestly think that the relationship that Governor Hutchinson was able to build with Chairman Lee, the founder and chairman of Sun Paper, really made a difference. There was a trust and a bond between the two of them. And the governor really put forward his best effort. And I think that trust made a big difference in the end.
The trust and the bond was reinforced by an incentive package as well.
Well, it doesn't happen overnight, and they don't put a $1 billion project in a community without assistance. And certainly there was a deficiency that we needed to make up. Obviously, we have a great timber supply in South Arkansas. That's what initially would attract a company like Sun Paper to the U.S. and to our state, was the abundance of resources that we have available to them. We were at a deficiency for other things, including logistics. It was easier to ship out of the Mississippi River on a site that was right there on the Mississippi. So to overcome that, it was all things considered equal. Incentives had to come into it and be a part of the discussion.
Well, it could be asked, why an economy the size of China's, why does it need incentives? With all the, as you mentioned, the abundance of natural resources, the timber in South Arkansas and the area. Why does it need incentives?
Sure, it needs incentives because we do have those deficiencies that we needed to overcome. Shipping their product back out, they're going to have to put it on a rail and ship it across the country to Long Beach to excuse me, to put it onto a barge to go across the Pacific Ocean. So that takes a lot of cost and an effort to put in there. We have a greenfield site there in Clark County, so there's a lot of sites in improvement that has to be done, rail spur, soil borings, reinforcing the soil, all kinds of stuff that come into play. So we're trying to, level the playing field with our competition is essentially where we needed to be to make sure that they had a decision to make and it was equal with what other states were offering.
Is there anything ironic at all in a capitalist society extending tax credits to what is still a command economy, China's?
You have to look at the Chinese economy and you can't ignore it. I mean, it's the second largest economy in the world, and whether we want to or not, we trade with China, and we have to trade with China. They're looking to invest outside of their country. That was something we learned when we were there. The China Investment Corporation has over $800 billion that they're looking to invest in projects, and their government is encouraging them to build and look outside of their country. So being the number one economy in the world, it makes a lot of sense for us to do business with China. So we are fortunate that we do have these resources here and that we have that relationship and that partnership with China, that they're able to come in. These are going to be jobs that are going to be based here in Arkansas. They're going to come in and spend $1 billion. You're looking at jobs at an average wage of $52,000 a year. Not to mention the jobs that support that, the logging industry, the timber industry around South Arkansas. And then you look at just the number of construction jobs. At peak, it'll probably be about 2,000 construction jobs when they're building their facility.
Let me ask this. There is much, we're in a presidential campaign, there is much discussion of trade and foreign investment. Did any of your Chinese contacts express any reservations at all about the tenor of the presidential campaign that's underway and how that could impact?
It certainly comes up.
Either this project or others.
Sure, it comes up, and people ask, about the politics. Obviously, the entire world pays attention to our presidential campaigns, but for the most part, I mean, they more looked at the political climate of our state and where we're heading as a state. I think the fact that we have a balanced budget makes a difference, makes an impact, that they know that they can go into a state that they know what they're going to get. They're not going to see their taxes raised in a couple of years. Those things are important to them, and this is kind of a state project, not looking at it at a federal scale. So certainly it was talked about, but it wasn't we're not coming if candidate A wins or candidate B loses. That was never part of the discussion or concern from this project, and hopefully not for others, because we do have a lot more active projects that will continue to work with Chinese and other foreign companies.
Is this agreement, is this arrangement, is this deal done? Is it set in stone? And I ask because it's widely reported that the Chinese economy is in many ways overextended, or at least there are some fissures in China's economy. You feel good about it?
I feel good about it. That MOU that the governor and Chairman Lee signed on Tuesday is the next step in this process. I feel confident that they have, it's not all based on the Chinese economy. They're going to have investors from all over the world who will be investing into this project. And Sun Paper as a company is, one of the largest companies in China with over 10,000 employees. Chairman Lee, built this company by himself and has turned it into, one of the largest, as I said, in China, if not the world. They have the financial wherewithal to, I think, sustain any upticks or downticks in the Chinese economy.
Where do you see the Arkansas economy right now? We were at record low unemployment, residential sales up, retail appears to be rebounding.
It's all positive. I mentioned
we've had two other announcements this week.
We have had two other announcements. Yeah, so that's 3 announcements in 1 week. It's been a busy week for us, but that goes into the momentum that we currently have in Arkansas. And this is, I think you're starting to see some of the efforts of our team at AEDC, and then obviously the governor, of getting out and telling that story about Arkansas, and traveling all over the country, traveling all over the world, and spreading that message. And all of a sudden, people are starting to take note, and they look and see Arkansas's unemployment at 4%, the lowest it's been in, I don't know how long, but many, many years at 4%, over 38,000 new jobs created last year. These are all extremely encouraging numbers. And then you start to see the work of these projects that we've been working for many weeks and months, and in Sun Paper's case for many years, now starting to come to fruition. We've got a lot more out there on the horizon, and people are starting to pick up the phone more frequently. So it's all good for Arkansas. I see things heading in a positive direction.
All right, Mike Preston of the AEDC, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Our roundtable in a moment. Back now with our panel, including John Lyon of the Arkansas News Bureau, where he's Capitol Bureau Chief, Lance Turner, reporter, columnist for Arkansas Business, Ernie Dumas, an independent journalist and columnist for Arkansas Times. John, the veto was promised, the deal was done, and the deal held.
It did. That was how they got the funding for the Medicaid expansion plan to get through the fiscal session, was to put a provision on it that said the program would end at the end of this year, but with the knowledge that the governor would veto it, so that allowed opponents to technically vote for killing Medicaid expansion, even knowing that there would be a veto of that provision. So this last week, the big fight over funding Medicaid expansion finally came to an end for now with an attempt to override the governor's veto. Senator Bart Hester of Cave Springs made the attempt in the Senate, and he didn't have the votes, and he knew he didn't have the votes. He said afterward this was just his way of making sure that they had tried everything that there was to try. Now, I guess now we get to have the same fight all over again in the next session. Also, there's the possibility that there could be a legal challenge to the line item veto. Some people have talked about maybe a lawsuit challenging the line item veto. And then supporters of Medicaid expansion have talked about perhaps in a special session passing legislation that would protect against a lawsuit by they could pass superseding language so that even if the veto were struck down, the superseding language would ensure that the program would continue. So we might see that happen in the special session. The governor has said that after this session ends, which could happen in the coming week, he has said that he's going to at some point call another special session. So that might be on the agenda.
Well, what's left for this fiscal session is to wrap up, really, the general budget.
Right. They have
what to spend money, how to spend the rest of it.
Right. Over the weekend, the governor's office and legislators are working on the Revenue Stabilization Act, which will set spending priorities for the coming fiscal year, because the legislature's been passing appropriation bills, but appropriation is not the same thing as spending. They have to actually decide who gets the money. And they're saying that the RSA could be presented as early as Monday, and then if everything went smoothly, it could pass in the coming week, and maybe by Friday they could go home.
Yeah, some of this is ritual, Ernie, some of it's not.
Well, it is. It's a ritual that you've had to go through since 1947 anyway, I guess, when we came up with our present fiscal system. And you have to have a Revenue Stabilization Act that divvies up all the general revenues, all the sales taxes and income taxes and cigarette taxes, and that's what we have to do. And that is the central bill of the session. All the appropriation bills, it's hard to say that they're not worth anything, but you get an appropriation for $1 million, you can't spend a dime of it until you get the authorization to actually spend that money from the Revenue Stabilization Act. So it's an important bill, and usually 9/10 of the legislature doesn't have a clue about what it does, but that's the Joint Budget Committee, and usually a handful of people along with the governor's office, Department of Finance and Administration, kind of go through the mechanics and work that out, and that distributes the money for the next year. So we go through that every year.
Dan, John, as you say, we've still got another session to go. We've still got highways to address.
Highways, and then some other things that people have talked about bringing up in a special session are possibility of creating managed care system in Medicaid, possibility of boosting funding for levies around the state, possibility of, as I said, passing something to strengthen the line item veto. There are lots of different ideas that are separating the Martin Luther King and Robert E. Lee holidays. So I don't think there's a consensus right now for what all they want to tackle. So some people have talked about gaveling out and then just gaveling right back in for a special session, but it doesn't sound like there's really a consensus yet on what the special session should be about exactly. So I think there'll probably be a little bit of a gap.
Yeah. Well, we skipped down to the economy. Not really. We're talking dollars and cents here. By most standards, I guess Arkansas Lance had a pretty good week. Mr. Preston, was talking about the billion plus investment by the Chinese paper company, which, when you figure in the incentives, will be a little bit less than $1.5 billion.
Yeah, it's the game that we all say we hate to play, but we keep on playing it, and that is states and local governments having to pony up to attract some of these companies and get them to set up shop in their area. And this is no different. Arkansas laid out its own raft of incentives and grant money to help with infrastructure. The local government, the Clark County government, had a special tax that it re-upped a couple of years ago, an economic development tax expressly set aside for this kind of thing. They'll contribute money from that to this project as well. They'll abate property taxes there on the property where they're going to build the plant in the Clark County Industrial Park. That's going to amount to $92 million over 20 years alone. But all of this is made with the expectation that they're going to get a lot back from it, and that's the jobs, and that's the ecosystem, and the businesses that'll grow up around this plant. The Chairman Lee talked about that in the news conference announcing the plant earlier this week. Is that not only would you have the 225 some odd permanent jobs at the plant, but you'd also have this ecosystem of 1,000 additional jobs around it by the time you factor in, people bringing supplies in and out of the plant, suppliers and vendors to that plant in that area, and then of course, 2,500 or so construction jobs over a 2.5-year period as well. So you expect to make an investment and then get the dividends back over a period of time, and that's kind of the bargain you make when you lay out incentives for a company this size.
Well, we also had a couple of other industrial announcements, or economic development announcements, certainly this past week. 3, if you count that significant expansion up in northwest Arkansas, Rogers Hospital.
That's right, yeah.
Almost $300 million.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That's a $247 million project. That's at Mercy Northwest Arkansas in Rogers, and they're doing some expansion at their hospital in Rogers, a 190,000 square foot tower that's going to add 100 beds or so. And then they're also adding several clinics in the area as well in Washington County and Benton County. And they're seeing a real need, as a lot of people in healthcare are, for more healthcare jobs and more healthcare facilities. In fact, in 2015, we reported this week, construction spending on healthcare alone in 2015 doubled from the previous year. So a lot of these entities are gearing up for the influx of baby boomers that are coming in, and just the need for more health care in the state. And so that was a significant announcement that the governor also attended this week as well, up in northwest Arkansas. Yeah,
Arkansas works, you might say, Ernie.
Well, we probably should say something else about what's the name of the Chinese plant?
Sunpaper.
Well, we call it Sunpaper, but Shandong
Sunpaper industry.
Industry. The significance, symbolically at least, of that announcement. Of course, here we are giving massive tax incentives to communist China, and this has been in the works for 5 or 6 years, I guess. I think back fairly early in the Beebe administration, they began to make the first contacts with this Chinese industry about coming to Arkansas. It was either going to be in Louisiana, Mississippi, or Arkansas. This is where the timber is. They have this very soft pine, so this is where it had to be, either in Arkansas or Mississippi. So I guess we were bidding against Mississippi. But I think it actually goes back much farther than I remember when this all started. Yeah, I think it was in 1971. And Steve, you remember it, I'm sure. That's when President Nixon's opening to China, and everybody was in shock. The President of the United States was
actually 72. It was
72.
Just happened to be an election year.
Yeah, 72. That's right. And he goes over to China and opens the door to this secretive, tyrannical Chinese communist regime, and opens up. And this is the result of it. We're going to get a Chinese paper plant here in Arkansas, and they will take our timber. And my daddy, by the way, would have been tickled to death about it, because he hauled pulpwood for a living back for many years, and I don't think he ever dreamed that somebody would get $52,000. I think that's going to be the average payroll, right? $52,000
That's what we're told, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my daddy would be thrilled about that. I think he might have cleared maybe $1,000 some year, but but it's a good thing, I think, for South Arkansas. In particular, the timber industry has been, and the paper industry has been kind of depressed in South Arkansas. So it's a bonanza for Clark County and counties down south of there.
Well, there's some other encouraging signs. Well, we've got, as we noted with Mr. Preston earlier, Lance and everyone, we've got Arkansas unemployment at apparently a record low. Retail is recovering. Residential sales are showing very positive gains pretty much across the board.
Yeah,
Certainly in the metro areas.
Right, right. And then you get these sort of weird national signals where the GDP was at 0.3% growth for this most recent quarter. And so, I think certainly in Arkansas, I mean, if you just look at this week alone, I mean, we're also talking about the possibility of another $1 billion plant in Jefferson County that's coming along, an energy plant that looks promising. It's not completely set in stone, but it's looking like all signs are go there. And then you've got Big River Steel that's supposed to come online, another $1 billion project that's supposed to come online later this year. So certainly some positive signs. State revenue looks fairly good, but I think we're just so sort of shell-shocked from what happened in 2008 that it's hard to sort of rest easy. And you've got some consumer confidence signals out there that are a little confusing. People don't entirely feel really great just yet about the economy, even though we've had a pretty good run of good news.
Well, the Fed left rates alone, at least for the time being, but that's the near term. Anyway, the other big story, it's a statewide story, the Little Rock School statewide story, if for no other reason because the state is running actively the Little Rock School District, and its critics would argue, is running it into the ground. Now, proponents of this action, so wait a minute, it was time for a change. At any rate, the new guy, literally the new guy in town, is sort of making the rounds now. What do we know about him?
Well, Dr. Michael Poor,
yeah,
he's been in Arkansas a couple of years. He's actually from, I guess his academic career has been basically in Colorado. I don't recall whether he's a native of Colorado or not, but he's a graduate of institutions out there, and he was held several jobs in school administration in Colorado, and he came several years ago. He came to Bentonville, Arkansas, the home of Walmart, obviously, and he's been the superintendent of schools there. So when after 1 year, the state education commissioner, Johnny Key, decided to not fire. They resent the word fire, and they just didn't renew his contract, of Baker Curris, who had been appointed as the kind of the overseer of the Little Rock schools when the State Board of Education voted to take over the Little Rock schools, put him in charge. And he's done an amazing job, if nothing else, in making friends throughout the community. And everybody at the end, his enemies at the outset, everybody in the end thought Baker Curris was doing an incredible job. And then all of a sudden, very abruptly, he was gone. And Dr. Michael Poor was appointed as the superintendent of schools, and he's hit the ground in some very rough terrain. The community is, I think, virtually everybody in the community seems to be outraged about the conduct of the thing. So I think the governor has taken a hit, along with Johnny Key and Mr. Poor. Dr. Poor we just ran into him in the hallway here a moment ago, and he's down here, I think, trying to pour some oil on the troubled waters. But and I think he's so far doing a pretty good job. He's been meeting with hostile columnists, political columnists,
well,
and having dinner with them. So he's doing his best.
The pushback, though, how serious is it, and will it accomplish much of anything other than just keep this system in turmoil? Anybody got any thoughts?
Well, Johnny Key issued an apology. The Education Commissioner Johnny Key issued an apology for the timing of what happened. And we've seen some rallies, a couple of rallies in recent days, where people are demanding that Baker Curris be reinstated. But so far, Key has stood by his decision to replace him. He apologized for the timing. The change of leadership was announced within days of Baker Curris having been an outspoken critic of expanding charter schools in Little Rock, and it looked to a lot of people as if he had gotten in trouble for saying what he said.
All right, stay with John for just a second, because there is a story that we, overlooked a little earlier. In addition to what the legislature is spending money on, is also choosing to not spend money or add money to certain accounts, and one high-profile account would be early childhood education.
There have been several pushes in recent years for boosting pre-K education, which has not been increased except for a one-time infusion of money in the last 8 years. There was a bill by a Democratic representative that was presented in Joint Budget Committee, a proposal to increase funding by $10 million, and it was voted down. The vote was not even close. So doesn't look good for pre-K this time.
What was this, John? An ideological split? The vote in joint budget?
The governor is against. The governor spoke against, or one of the governor's people spoke against the proposal. It's not in the governor's budget, and I think it is mostly Democrats who are pushing for it.
I think the Democrats were the ones who voted for it, and the Republicans voted against it. But pre-K is a kind of a universally popular idea. I mean, I think the governors embrace it. Well, this needs to be very conservative columnists say that this is a solution. Is a universal pre-K education, but it takes money, and education is not a high priority now. So the education budget has been. We go back to the Lakeview decision a few years ago, but ever since the Lakeview decision came about, then funding for education has not kept pace, and that's going to be true this time as well. And pre-K was dead at the outset, I think.
All right, we got to end it there because we're out of time. Guys, thanks to you for coming in. As always, thanks to you for watching. See you next week.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.